Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the I'll Try That podcast. This week we are going to be talking about a London craft brewer and independently owned brewery, Gipsy Hill. First, Rich, I've got some BrewDog news to share with you.
More BrewDog news, because the last BrewDog news we had wasn't the best, shall we say.
It wasn't the best, it definitely was, after the, I think maybe 5 positive BrewDog stories, there was one that was bad. And I've got another positive one for us, That's how people's brain reacts anyway.
They're just balancing out.
What, you think 5 positive stories to every 1 negative balances out? Do you think that's a good thing?
Well, that's it. It's a rule for life that I live by.
It's also because people do remember negative stories 5 times more than positive stories. It's a fact. It's a factoid right there. As I think you and Barbara terms or found that we actually do a lot more factoids on this show than we do facts.
Yeah. And that's actually a really good fact. I like that one, Joe.
BrewDog have agreed to a joint venture with Asahi. As we all know, Asahi, huge Japanese monolithic brewery that own so many different companies. And they've agreed with Asahi to create BrewDog Japan. Now, BrewDog Japan is a joint venture which its whole purpose is to push BrewDog products into the Japanese market. So you might be asking yourselves, well, are BrewDog already in Japan? Is it the whole new market? They already have a BrewDog bar in Tokyo. So this is already one of the key areas that they've, the kind of countries that they've already identified. And you can find limited BrewDog already around Japan. But with this move with Asahi, who, let's face it, is one of the biggest distributors and, beer manufacturers in Japan, this is going to be exponential growth for BrewDog in that market.
And I mean, BrewDog are big, and they're only getting bigger. And with this move, it's just going to be absurd. They're going to be becoming kind of, I suppose, what they strayed away from their original roots at the route they're going, which is the way they should be going. They are big, they are good, and they're a really tasty beer. And we should try and get it out there more and more. But yeah, I think they may be straying away from their original roots.
Yeah, I mean, I think as you said, you said there they've grown massively. I mean, there's a stat out at the moment that they're valued at about £1 billion. They're in discussions right now about going through an IPO, which is becoming a publicly listed company. So this is a big organization now. And actually to address, some of those, the accusations that they were facing, some of that bad news that we reported before, that was coming out about this open letter that several former employees had written. What BrewDog have done, and, this is just coming from this article that I'm reading about this joint venture. They're saying that, the company's since employed an industry specialist and craft beer consultant, Ren Navarro, as diversity specialist.
Oh, okay.
He's also said it would appoint a mental health and well-being ambassador. So again, it feels like that advice that we gave them of start acting like a real company, a big organization, a corporate organization.
Yeah.
It feels like they're taking those necessary steps to actually clean up their image and look after their employees.
I'd like to think they listened to our podcast and went, those boys are right.
I think it just came from us.
Yeah, that's it. I'm going to take 100, us as a podcast are going to take 100% of the responsibility for BrewDog going in the right direction.
I don't think responsibility is the right word. I will take the credit, though. We'll definitely take the credit.
The credit.
We gave them a telling off and said they needed to grow up, and they've decided to do so, and that's all because of us.
Well done, us. Self 5.
Right. Less massaging our own egos and complete, it just doesn't exist. Let's jump into our brewery that we're going to highlight this week. Now, Rich, we're going to talk about Gipsy Hill Brewery. What can you tell me about them?
So, I can't even get my words out. Why have I
Gipsy Hill.
Gipsy Hill. Gipsy Hill is one of those new breweries that has kind of come out into the scene, and so they kind of started going around about back 2013, where Charlie and Sam met at a craft beer institution, the Rake in Borough Market, and they had some mutual friends. and they decided to start a brewery. They said they shook hands, drank some beer, and got to know each other and penned a plan to put a stake into the brewing world. So they're just two fellas who enjoyed beer, enjoyed drinking beer, and you have those drunken conversations. That's how I can feel it went. They had those drunken conversations and went, we should start a bar. Or in this case, we should start a brewery. And they did. They followed through.
Did it.
Yeah.
Jumping ahead a little bit, I'm just looking at their 2015 when they've opened their first tap room again. We're going through the real history of Gipsy Hill for anyone that doesn't know the South London, kind of craft brewer, which is Gipsy Hill, which personally have been on my, I've been a fan favourite of Gipsy Hill beers for a long time now. But when they opened up their tap room in 2015, guess how much they were selling their pints for?
In London.
Yeah, it's a South London. Yeah, well, don't know the bit where it is in London matters, but it's a London-based brewery.
I'm going to go. We've talked about average prices of pints. That's the word I was trying to get out. I'm going to go $5.50.
£3.50 for all of their beers was what you could buy Gipsy Hill beers brewed at their establishment, fresh from the tap.
I can imagine the queues in that place were massive.
So jumping ahead into 2016-17 as well, they were able to double their brewing capacity. They went from 4 tanks to 19 tanks, which is more than double. But I've skipped a couple of tanks in this summary. But come 2019, so they started out as 2 guys, very quickly became 3. And they kind of stayed at that kind of growing but smaller level for a while. Come 2019, they have 24 employees, 25 tanks, and they brew 9,125 hectolitres every year.
You know what? Ever since learning about hectolitres, I just find it mad that's a volume, and that's how much people are producing. It just impresses me.
Well, producing, but also being consumed as well. I think that just kind of shows how popular beer actually is, and how it's. And when we talk about how beer is declining as a market, we're talking about obviously by percentages, which is obviously a huge amount of people who are going away from beer onto other things, but it doesn't make a dent in the amount of beer that's actually being produced and actually being consumed.
No, it's mad. I think it always reminds me of I think it's the In-Betweeners when they're trying to get served underage, and they just mention a pint. A pint seems a lot. You wouldn't drink a pint of milk. I think that's the lines, and it is. It just blows my mind, just the measurements of how much beer is actually drunk.
Well, a pint is obviously a very interesting, and I always find that actually a pint is a lot of liquid to be consuming. I think, countries like the Netherlands and the Europeans, they drink a lot more 33 centilitres, styled like beers. And I think that volume is just right. And the Americans obviously don't drink pints at all. They drink less than that as well. So I do think that's an English culture, necessity that we go with pints, and pints is how we do it. And it's not even like a system that anyone uses anymore. I remember we used to get milk in pints, and that's all gone out the window. We now never get, we're talking litres now. We've gone in the European scale, which I'm very happy to do.
But it's fair play to them, and I believe that they're still staying independent as a brewery, which I find is really good for such success and everything like that. We've seen a lot of other independent breweries in London be brought out by these big breweries, which I'm not saying is a bad thing if it is the right move for them, but it is nice to see a popular beer that is making it mainstream into supermarkets and stuff like that staying independent. I'm there for it. I'm a fan.
Now, we've got to talk about their beers, okay? So they have 6 core beers, or what they refer to as a family of beers.
Yeah.
Now, they went through a redesign in 2019, and they got all these beers got renamed. But I'm just going to list out the names of these beers, and we're going to talk about what we feel about that. So they've got Bandit, which is a gluten-free pale ale. They've got HepCat, which is a session IPA. Hunter, which is a Hell's Lager. Baller, which is an IPA. Ranger, which is a pale ale. And Carver, which is a micro IPA. Now, what are you getting from the sense of those names and the, what that means as a family of beers?
Well, it just reminds me a bit of like computer game. Each character in the computer game. Yeah, characters.
Each beer has been given this kind of real personified character. Like
they're almost Grand Theft Auto-ish characters.
Yeah, well, I mean, also because when you look at them as well, I know for the listeners who are just hearing this, what each can has a certain character or person, let's say, designed. So the HepCat that I am drinking is a guy in a red anorak holding the HepCat sign.
Have you read the descriptions of each beer though?
No, tell me what you've learned.
So it's a HepCat. I'm also drinking HepCat as well, and I just wanted to read a bit more about it. But it goes, "This is HepCat, a session IPA. Goes well with dance floors and smooth moves." And then I'm assuming this is Marcus. He's our design illustrator and friend. He likes expensive jackets and colouring in. I think Marcus is the bloke on the can.
So you think each one of these cans is a person, either part of the
works.
brewery or like it works at the brewery?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'm just going to read Baller, which is another one they've got. Oh no, cut that bit out because I know other of them do have names for who's on there.
So I'm looking at so actually to bring to that point, I'm looking at Ranger now. So they're saying, blah, 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 blah. This is Josh. He's a production wonder kid. He likes his comforts and the great outdoors.
There we go. And then another one. So I'm just looking at the Carver one and goes, this is Alice. She's our sales whiz. She likes far-flung adventures. I think each person on each of these beer cans is somebody who works for the company.
Now that's great. I mean, that's quite literally putting your people front and centre of your business. I love that. Like really leaning into your people are your ambassadors, are your brand. Like let's actually bring them out. And the fact that they've named their beers after core. I mean, 6 core members of the team. We just mentioned they've got 24 of them. So you'd be those 6 people. It must be very important, or at least feel like they're very important by having beers named after them.
It's definitely something. If I worked for Gipsy Hill, it would definitely be something I would be working towards to get my name on one of those cans. It would be fantastic.
What would your name be? What was your beer name be then?
HepCat, Baller, Carver, Hunter, Ranger, Bandit, Swordsman.
So you're going to be the swordsman. Okay, the swordsman. Swordsman. The swordsman, because if you cross your path, watch out. Like, where does the swordsman come from?
That makes me sound awful.
You came up with the name of the swordsman as your Gipsy Hill beer.
I was going along the lines of computer games characters.
Okay.
And I was like, and I panicked and shouted the swordsman.
Okay.
And
oh, I'd quite like mine to be, given that there's like Hunter, Ranger, Carver, Baller, Bandit, let's go trader. That will fit into that. Trader. It kind of makes you feel like coming and going, a facilitator of things, maybe the kind of exchange of goods. I quite enjoy that. I could see the trader being a name, the brew.
So like they're all kind of based on computer game characters. So you'd be that guy who'd be like, hello there, traveller. What can we trade for today?
That sounds like a very specific game you're talking about. I feel like you need to... But yeah, right. Look at my wares. Yeah. Have you got coin?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll trade you for a chicken.
Trade you a chicken. So talking about it. Okay. So HepCat itself, which we both have, is this session IPA. It's 4.6%. I'm definitely getting the kind of the fruity, hoppy, citrusy notes that you'd expect from a craft session IPA. And I can honestly say, from 2013, they're definitely fitting that craft beer organizational brewery remit that we kind of lump all these like kind of newer age breweries together. It's fizzy's not the right word, but it's definitely new, flavoursome on your tongue, isn't it?
No, they're literally hitting the nail on the head for new age craft brewery. They've got the funky can, the great flavour, and kind of like the funky design all over it. And yeah, I'm happy for like it is a new age brewery. It is a modern brewery, and they're aiming for that younger market again.
So what I'm finding fascinating about it, I like holding the HepCat can in my hand. So it's obviously a can. It's an aluminium can, that's black in color, but the main body of the can is what looks to be a label that's been stuck onto this black can. And the label itself is this metallicized, metallic feeling. It's got such an interesting texture to it. Are you feeling this can? Like it's very like on my fingers. It feels really nice, and it's kind of clean. Yeah, you've pulled the label off.
I've pulled the label off.
Yeah.
And
Rich destroy. Me Rich. Yeah. Me destroy can.
There we go. My name would be the Destroyer.
Destroyer. There you go. Yeah. And you'd be a dark stout, wouldn't you, Rich?
Yeah. One of my least favourite ales, but yeah, I'd be a dark stout.
So now you've ripped off the label. Is it a solid black can? What's the colour underneath the can? Okay, interesting, really interesting. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's fascinating the fact that they've decided to have a label in the first place over printed on a can. For such an established, I guess established is maybe the wrong word, but they've been around for 2013. You direct printing onto cans is very much what's happening right now with digital prints. But the fact that they've got a label still applied to a can is a bit old school. It's a bit like up and coming new brewery kind of vibes. Whereas actually, as we know, they're quite big and they've grown quite a lot.
I actually quite like it. I quite like the label sticking on. And I have done with other breweries. And, I don't know, maybe it's because I like peeling labels off. But no, I think generally I quite like it being stuck on, and I quite like being able to, that they can change it, easily changeable.
Well, part of this is exactly as you said. They could just make cans, or they can buy cans, let's say, that's this black band at the top with all this text around, with Gipsy Hill around it, and then they can slap these different labels on, depending on what beer is filled within it. But this is actually a newish redesign. As I said, they started this up in about 2019. They changed their beers. That was not just about the different names of the beers. So their main beer at the time, hold that thought. So their main beer for their flagship beer was called Beatnik Pale Ale, and it has now become the Bandit, which you'll see is the one that says it's about gluten beer, gluten free.
Okay, yeah.
So would you say outside of the UK? Oh no, let me rephrase that. So thinking about Gipsy Hill, we've kind of given a bit of an overview about how they were started, 2013, where they were in South London. People in the UK might have come across them. Do you think what size do you think they're at in the sense of, are they just a UK distributing company, or do you think they go further afield?
I think they've made Europe.
Okay.
And I think there's some European countries who are enjoying Gipsy Hill.
How many countries do you think?
15.
15. Are you close? So there's 11 countries in the world that can enjoy Gipsy Hill products. That includes Lithuania, Norway, Ireland, Denmark, Australia. So, Simo, sell us if you can get a Gipsy Hill down under. Go find it, mate. Spain, France, Italy, Sweden, Switzerland, and the Netherlands. So a lot of those are, of course, everything outside of Australia, and is Lithuania in Europe? So as we all know, and we didn't have to Google, Lithuania is part of the EU.
Yeah, just found that. Yeah, that well-known European country, Lithuania.
So on Instagram, Gipsy Hill are 27k followers, and Twitter they've got 12k followers. So definitely leaning into some of the cool, kind of craft beers. They do a lot of collaborations with companies. So they do quite a few limited editions work, which is great. I can see one that they do with this is Glimmer, which is a tropical stout, which I would love to know and understand what a tropical stout would be like.
Yeah, I'm there for that.
And they're saying tropical stout because it's got the expected coffee notes, but with those rolling coconut aromas and lashings of tonka. So following on with the nomenclature that obviously we just talked about, where their beers are named after, what could be video game characters, but it could also be, members of their team. All of their limited edition beers, or their kind of special brews, as they refer to them as, have those similar kind of names. It's Glimmer, which is a girl. There's also a Twitcher, which is a double IPA. So, nice. I like the kind of, it's quite unique how they've done their naming. It's very different. Yeah. I can't think of anyone else who does something like this. And even if this isn't actually members of the Gipsy Hill team, the fact that they're creating like a personified person about each of these beers is quite interesting.
They're creating a universe. They're something like Marvel. They're creating a Gipsy Hill verse. And this is all the characters inside the Gipsy Hill verse, and that's what they're putting across. So
what you're saying is they need to really think about how they can create an actual world outside of their physical presence. Do you think you're saying they need to create a video game is what you're basically going to?
Or a movie. Or a TV series. Yeah. Or a TV series. Yeah. I'd be there for the Gipsy Hill TV series. It's just a group of misfits who decide to start a brewery. I think that's the premise. I'm going to pitch that to Amazon Prime or Netflix. Netflix, they take anything.
Yeah, I mean, you might need to get their permission to use the Gipsy Hill name and sell an idea based on their brewery. But yeah, I would definitely go for it. And that's all we have time for this week's episode of the I'll Try That podcast. And so from me, Joe, Rich,
Barbara, and Simo,
goodbye. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram,
Twitter, I'llTryThatPodcast.com, and watch us on YouTube.
Goodbye now.